It's time to get your morning started with the news you need to know.
News update.
This is what's trending with DJ and PK. Hashtag NBA.
I want to put him at the point guard. I want to make him uncomfortable and see how he reacts. Being able to run the show, being able to play the 2, play the 3. He's comfortable playing that, but we want to push. And I think he's going to respond in a positive way.
That's Dallas Mavericks coach Jason Kidd saying he will push Cooper Flagg. Put a 6'9" guy at the point and put the ball in his hands. When has that ever worked, PK? Give me one example you've seen in your lifetime.
Well, you're talking about Magic. Obviously, he was a Flagg. He was a point guard since birth. I don't know that
anyone else is going to pull that
something.
off. Yeah, right?
Yeah. It's funny, Jordan pushes Russell, and it's a big hubbub, and Kidd pushes Flagg, and it's great. I don't understand it.
Different time, different place, different era, PK. There you go. It's a double standard. I think that he doesn't have to play point guard. This is the part about positionless basketball that makes complete sense that we've been seeing. If he could initiate the pick and roll even some of the time, the whole thing about giving teams different looks, and maybe he's not doing it 40 possessions a game. Maybe he's doing it, 10 times a game. You don't have to be Magic and have the ball in your hands every possession. But if you can do it well enough to do it once in a while, it gives teams a different look, and over time maybe he gets a lot more confident. Why not? See what he can do.
I don't know that he needs confidence to do that. I mean, that's something he's been doing his whole life. I still want somebody to bring the ball up. I don't want Flagg bringing the ball up. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
I don't think bringing the ball up is as big a deal as who runs the first or sometimes even the second pick and roll. If you can do that, you can really put yourself in the middle of the action, whether it's, points, assists, but just create good opportunities for your team to score.
Oh, I love it when you talk basketball.
Oh, man, I thought of you when this happened because this is a story, whether it works or not. The Lakers signed DeAndre Ayton. $34 million this season. With the money that he's making with the Blazers who bought him out, and then the money that the Lakers are going to pay him. So, well paid. And he does put up stats, but he drifts during games, checks in and checks out, runs up and down the court at 2/3 to 3/4 speed. Now, having LeBron and Luka Doncic, can those guys, with all veteran leadership, one guy keeping him in line, role model, blah, 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 is somebody going to get through to him? He's getting older. We talk about players maturing in their mid-20s. Are the Lakers talking themselves into something that might actually work, or just setting themselves up for the disappointment they felt in Phoenix and the disappointment they felt in Portland?
Yeah, I think the guy is who he is. Sign Patty Mills, then, if you're looking for that great veteran leadership. I already told you what I thought of that. That is so cliche and so overrated. Does the guy have a personal motor to want to compete at the highest level? That's what it boils down to. It's fortunate that LeBron has no hair already, because playing with DeAndre Ayton would cause him to lose his hair.
Pull it out, baby.
This is who he's going to be. But the Lakers don't have anything, so if he can give them something. Here's a guy who, when he was in Portland, he did not play because it was icy.
Yeah.
So he didn't leave his home. They talked about it for days in Phoenix. This is who he is. You expect him to be anything. He'll have some good games. He'll be able to help them. I don't think that they're looking at him as Phoenix did as the number one pick. Now he's a guy who was waived, essentially, so the expectations will be a lot different.
Dallas Mavericks are giving former Utah Jazz guard Dante Exum a 1-year contract, so he'll be back in the league next year in Dallas. NBA adjusting Greg Popovich's career record, removing the 77 games he missed last season. Change did not move Popovich from his top spot. He is the number one coach all time with 1,390 wins. It actually helps his career win percentage. Now he's at .628, so there you go. What he'll always have is 5 titles. And famed NBA halftime performer Red Panda suffered a broken wrist after a fall from her 8-foot-tall unicycle that she rides at halftime of games while she balances and flips bowls with her feet onto her head. took a fall at the game, ended up with a broken wrist. DJ and PK.
Hashtag NFL.
I want to see what calling a game feels like.
Oh.
Yeah, I want to see.
Getting in the booth. You saw that, man. Tom Brady paycheck. And you saw his first couple of games, and you were like, I can do that. I can do that. 320? Was that what it was?
Yeah, it was funny. No, I've always like, I feel like impersonated guys that call the games and stuff like that growing up, and I don't know, I thought it would always be fun.
You
just
want
jump
to
in
throw
there.
a random clip and you commentate it for us real quick? You don't want to do that?
I don't like, no.
You don't want to try to work through some improv here?
No, that's not, yeah.
Do a table read?
That's what it felt like right there. I just felt like,
Please, God, no, sir.
No.
I love where your head's at, but I feel like the preparation involved for calling a game, like truly sitting in the booth, color commentating, has got to be.
Player names is where
Yeah.
Yeah, that and the constant swearing, that'd be something on the network. You have to dial that in, dial that back. Fine on a podcast, but not so much on a network football broadcast.
Swearing jumped out at you?
See if Travis Kelce can slow that down.
Well, obviously he would. You think that's an issue?
Probably not. He would probably be able to control himself, but it's pretty funny in that clip while he's talking about it. Not even close.
He's just trying to build his brand. That's what he's doing.
Yep.
So you
and he's
going to
need
boys.
And he's going to need to do something with his time after he's done playing. So why not this? Give it a shot. More games than ever are being broadcast, whether it's NFL or now college football. Games everywhere, broadcasts everywhere. And if he's got a knack for it and wants to do it, he can get better and do it. Certainly like the name recognition, the celebrity for sure. DJ and PK.
Hashtag college football.
NCAA's created a special one-time transfer portal window from July 7th to August 5th where athletes who would not have made a roster in their respective sport, and 105 in college football, can enter the portal. They'll be assigned a designated student-athlete tag. BYU quarterback Jake Retzlaff could be assigned this tag by BYU. Deadline for designations July 6th. Then they can hit the portal with no issues in transferring. Schools have full control in naming their designated student-athletes. Players do not have to move. So guys who don't have any idea are about to get bumped at quote-unquote lower-level schools. How else would that work?
I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't understand this in the least.
They used to have, the scholarships and the walk-ons, and they have more than 105 players.
This is the college football version of the waiver wire.
Right?
But who's going to be on it?
Jake Retzlaff.
Well, Jim, but there'll be other guys, too.
Yeah, but he may be the headliner.
But somebody who's walked on at Ohio State and Oregon may now be getting a roster spot in the Pac-12 Mountain West Big Sky and bump somebody who's already there. Some of those schools may be able to up their rosters and find some players. It'll be a scramble. It's like you said, Yak. It's a waiver wire, a bonus portal.
Yeah, but who would want these guys? I don't understand it.
The expectation is they're not going to be top-of-the-line players, but to DJ's point, it could be a guy at Oregon who may be the 110th guy, could go and be like the 80th guy at the G6 level.
He's already gone. I said this is a big nothing to me.
DJ PK.
Hashtag Major League Baseball.
1-2 pitch. Strike three called. There it is. He got him with a slider. Strikeout number 3,000 for Clayton Kershaw. History at Dodger Stadium. They will stop the game. Kershaw doffing his cap to the crowd. This adoring crowd here at Dodger Stadium as Clayton Kershaw enters the 3,000 club, just the 20th member and only the 4th left-hander in the history of the game with 3,000 strikeouts, every one of them coming in a Dodger uniform. He swings, and it's a base hit to right. Ohtani around third. He comes to the plate. Dodgers win! Dodgers win! The 15th career walk-off hit for Freddie Freeman, and the Dodgers come all the way back to win it 5-4.
Dodger fans get some history, and they get a 5-4 win over the Chicago White Sox, who continue to struggle. They're 30 games under 500. But a magical night at Chavez Ravine. 125 years of Major League Baseball. 126, I guess, now. And this is the 20th pitcher ever to do it. Rarefied air for a guy who's already got an MVP and a World Series and 3 Cy Youngs, and now he's in the 3,000 strikeout club, PK.
Yeah, I watched that game, and he got it on the called strike, and it was something to behold. The place is so funny. Right from the first inning, he get 2 strikes, and you can feel the buzz through the television, and you're waiting, and he had the most swing and misses he'd had all season, but he hadn't gotten the strikeouts. And the strikeouts were not coming, and you could see when he got 2 strikes and somebody put the bat on the ball, there was a groan. It's almost like, if there were 2 outs and it was a routine pop, they wanted the fielder to drop it so he can get another shot. And so you had that going on. And then when he got it, my wife was sitting there watching it with me, and Will Smith's the catcher. Why didn't he go out there to congratulate him? I said, because they clearly had been told, all of you, get off the field as soon as possible, and he's going to walk from the mound to the dugout and let him have the spotlight completely, because it was kind of weird. Strike 3 called, and it was just like it was the 1,457th strikeout for the catcher. The inning is over, and you know how they just go back to the dugout. And as I was watching it, it was obvious Will Smith knew what he was doing, and everybody else knew what they were doing, so they made sure they got ahead of him, and so that he could have that walk off the field completely and totally by himself. And then he stands there in front of the dugout, acknowledges the crowd, and then some players come up to him, and then he goes in the dugout, then he has to come back. I think it lasted, they said, 6-7 minutes. And yeah, it was history, man. Absolutely it was history. And it's cool, and I like what Kershaw said afterward. And the Dodgers came back and won the game. A little bit of a footnote, made it more fun, I guess, for the folks there. But he said, when he was younger, he didn't appreciate the opportunity to be in the Dodger uniform the whole time, because he's from Dallas, and there was talk about going to the Rangers and all that stuff. He says now where he is, he really appreciates the opportunity to have all these strikeouts with one wearing the same uniform with the same team and all that. And he said, I will finish my career, meaning I would think that means he's retiring this year. I don't know that. But there's something to be said for that, and that's really cool.
Only the 3rd pitcher to get all 3,000 strikeouts with the same team. Chris Sale, Garrett Cole up next. Maybe in a few years we'll see them. They're both still, looks like they're capable of maybe putting up 200 strikeouts a year. So for Chris Sale, that means 2 years. He'd be 38. Maybe he can get there. He's over 2,500 strikeouts. And Garrett Cole needs about 750 strikeouts. He's 34. So can he get 200 strikeouts a year for another 4 years? Those would be the next guys up for 3,000. What we don't have is guys in their 20s on any kind of pace to get there. There's a few guys who can still get there, but with guys throwing fewer innings and missing years with the surgery, it's getting harder and harder to pull this off.
Well, we'll see what Skeens does in 6-7 years, where he's at.
Yeah, it'll take a while. He's not to 1,000. I don't think he's to 1,000 yet, is he?
Oh, he's just getting started.
Yeah,
he's in his 2nd year.
So how can he be to 1,000?
If he was 1,000, he would get 9,000.
I saw him on a list. I'll look it up later. Whatever. It'll entertain me. The other games around Major League Baseball. Jose Altuve, 2-run single. So he's now on the Astros all-time hit list. He's now number 2. Beat the Rockies 5-3. Braves beat the Angels. Matt Olson with a grand slam in a 7-run 6th inning to win that game. And Toronto had an 8-run lead and blew it. And then held on to win. 11-9. Woo! Sweating it out. And they're now tied with the Yankees for the lead in the AL East. So look out. Here come the Jays.
I am looking out. In fact, I'm going to look out right in that stadium here in a few weeks.
That's right. It's on the list. Checking another ballpark. The Bees lost to Tacoma 9-3. Game 3 in the series tonight. First pitch 7:05. Tony Park's on the call at 6:50. Also, Major League Baseball starters out. PK, any snubs? Anything that bothers you? I mean, there's a couple positions where there's more than one really good player, and somebody had to be left out. So I don't know if it bugs you that much or not. Freddie Freeman, Pete Alonso at first base. Freeman wins. Alonso does. I mean, I'm assuming he'll be named here when they name the reserves, but he won't be a starter. I don't know if that one bugged you.
I would say Acuna would be the one because he's had the surgery. But over there in the American League, man, Jacob Wilson from the A's getting the job done, and he's going to be an all-star. And Jacob Wilson is from one of the higher learning institutions that I attended, but you may not think of
Grand
that.
Canyon.
It is Grand Canyon. He is an Antelope. I think his father was coaching there or something, so he went there. And I've got NAU doesn't even play baseball, so you can't have them.
No.
And so that's kind of cool. Grand Canyon. They've had a really good program for a number of years. They've had major leaguers. Tim Salmon for the Angels, I think, probably would be the most well-known.
DJ and PK.
Hashtag NHL. Hashtag golf.
PJ Tour contesting the John Deere Classic. Preston Summerhays, Zach Blair, Patrick Fishburne, the locals in the field this week. The last full field event stateside. The Open Championship coming up. A lot of guys will be
Scottish Open next week.
Yeah, a lot of guys are playing that Scottish Open next week and then the Open Championship in 2 weeks. But the John Deere Classic this week, so we got the locals to keep an eye on with the action starting today. DJ PK.
Hashtag NHL.
The NHL and the Players Association and international officials finalized a deal that had been agreed upon a while ago. They're going to send NHL players to the 2026 Milan Cortina Olympics. Be the first time the NHL players have been in the Olympics since 2014. So get ready for a nice little mid-season break for your Utah Mammoth when they announce the schedule here in a few weeks. It'll all become clear.
I'll be here.
What is Trending is brought to you by Shamrock Plumbing. There's no job too big or too small. Get the personal touch with Shamrock Plumbing. All right, the question today coming up. We got tickets for RSL to watch RSL take on St. Louis City Saturday night, America First Field. And we'll give those tickets away in the 8 o'clock hour. DJ and PK, the question of the day is next.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
What the Jazz didn't do last night is they did not reach on Ace Bailey by any means. The guys drafted right behind him, Trey Johnson, Jeremiah Fears, Yegor Tehemen, they probably don't have as much just natural skill as he has. Plus, he's got this physical body. Like, the Jazz didn't just draft a physical freak with no basketball skills. They got a good combination of skills and measurables.
They don't have to sell anything with Ace. When they drafted Trey Burke, they really had to sell it that he's a winner.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't really good at anything.
Right.
Dante Exum, you had to sell that he's going to learn to shoot. There's really nothing that you have to, sell it with this dude. The ceiling is there. He's super skilled. He's huge.
No, this isn't the Jazz trying to be smarter than anybody in the room. In fact, I think they're just not overthinking it. It's a huge player with a ton of skill. Great. That's the sell. That's what you're excited about.
Hear Jake Scott and Ben Anderson every day from 10 to noon on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. It is time for the question of the morning. The esteemed Brett McMurphy has the Utes in the college football playoff after winning the Big 12 Conference. Now, wouldn't that be a great bounce-back season? Did you expect these responses, PK?
I don't know what they are.
Aha! Well, there's Jared lecturing Utah. They haven't learned about being overly arrogant in the preseason? Question mark. Well, it's not they. It's Brett.
Sure. Yeah, I get your point.
But it is assigned to the Utes. Vernon, that's how they got in trouble last year, getting arrogant and listening to someone's opinion and getting overly confident.
I think they got in trouble because Cam Rising didn't get down.
Bing. Preseason rankings, in someone's opinion, proves diddly squat. They still have to show up for the first game and play. I don't agree with 11-1 season predictions. They still have to go to Morgantown, Provo, and Tempe. Well, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. They don't have to go to Tempe.
Except they do not have to go to Tempe,
no, they play,
take that out.
Yeah, they play Arizona State at home. But they do play those 3 all in a row, and that on paper looks like it could be a difficult stretch.
Well, it's supposed to be a difficult stretch.
It is. Stuff isn't supposed to be easy, please.
Yeah. So I think you can look every team and say, wow, that's a difficult stretch in the Big 12. Literally every team, because this conference has a lot of talent in it. And so, yeah, I get that. But I'm not really worried about the schedule because you don't know. Oklahoma State was supposed to be a pushover by the time they came to Provo last year, and it took just like every bit of the 60 minutes for the Cougars to win. So the schedule is just that. It's the schedule, and it'll be hard. Conference games, I've always bought in, even when they were in the WAC and Mountain West, obviously. And conference games are hard. Teams get up for conference games because they matter so much. So, yeah, it's going to be hard. But I can see where McMurphy's line of thinking is, because I look at teams when I do a poll or try to see, is this team going to be able to recreate what it did last year? I was talking to this with somebody just the other day about one-score games and things. One-score games, not where a team is up by 13 and gives a late touchdown.
Right, yeah,
I'm talking about a legitimate one-score game right down to the end. The Cougars and Devils had a bunch of them last year, and to be able to recreate that is awfully difficult because things really have to go your way. And we know that very football takes fluky bounces sometimes. Like in Kansas State for the Cougars, it seemed to bounce their way. It was like a 3 or 4 minute stretch there where the ball is all bouncing around. We remember the Kingston one and then the fumble return. And it has to bounce your way. And it happens sometimes, right? And so I look at teams that have a bunch of narrow wins and figure, okay, say they have 4. 1 or 2 of those the following year, just because of football, will probably be losses. Now, the flip side is if you have a bunch of narrow losses like Kansas had last year, they went through a stretch where it seemed like every game was a one-score loss, and it was right there, and something crazy was happening. And the Utes obviously had a disappointing season, but they had a bunch of games that they were right there, and if they have any form of offense, they can win. They even as screwed up as last season was, they were just a few plays away from winning 7-8 games. And I know that's what we do in sports, but I'm trying to take emotion out of it and fandom out of it and look at it as rationally, as logically as possible. And so if I do that, I'm thinking that, man, if they get any kind of offense, they should be in the mix. Whether they're going to win the conference, it's your guess, my guess, whomever, Brett McMurphy's guess, anticipation, prediction. That's all fun stuff, right? But I think they have a legitimate chance to get in November and have that opportunity.
If they keep their quarterback healthy this year, which obviously hasn't happened the last 2 years, but if they do, if he comes anywhere near replicating what he did at New Mexico, the defense looked really good last year, and it looks like it ought to be really good this year. So it shouldn't take a lot of offense. It's not like the offense is going to have to be great, and doesn't it have to be better?
Well, if Dampier's healthy, absolutely it will be. Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind.
So that's what he's banking on.
I understand. I know exactly what he's banking on. Yeah, I get it. I don't necessarily know that that's good enough to put them in first place, though. I guess you don't have to be first or second, and then win the game in Dallas there, or Irving, or wherever it is. Was it not Irvine? What's Arlington?
Yeah, Irving was their old stadium.
And I was going Irvington. I was combining the two places.
The two places. And merged these towns.
I was trying to think of it. But, yeah, so get to that point. I mean, it's certainly conceivable, especially when you think about they don't even have to win the regular season. You only have to win the one game. If you just finish in second place, you're good enough and you're good to go. So I can see where he would think that. I probably wouldn't pick it myself, but that's the two different things. I'm going to look and pick a conference standings, but I'm not going to pick who's going to win the game in Irvington.
That's going to become a thing now. Just embrace it.
Let's go to Irvington.
Let's go to Irvington for the Big 12 Media Days at the Star, and then we'll be back to Irvington.
Even though it's in Frisco. So
it doesn't matter. It's all Irvington now.
Irvington?
Yeah, merge them all together. Why not?
They call it the Metroplex. It's just one big area anyway,
it's
right?
True, yeah.
Arlington actually sits between Dallas and Fort
like
Worth. Doesn't this thing draw from both?
Yeah, it's right in the middle.
I mean, it's like L.A. It's, driving across it is, hour, 2 hours. You've been stuck in traffic down there, I know, because you told me about it. Yeah. There was when we were just starting out, there was a radio station down there that was held up as the example of all things awesome in radio. And so you were there and stuck in traffic, so you got to listen to it. It was raining and parked on the freeway and not moving. And then you told me, like, yeah, they're seeing stuff in the air that definitely wouldn't fly here. That's we can kind of be like them, but we better not be really like them because we'll all be in trouble.
Right. Their standards were something that would not fly in our community. The stuff that they were talking about. And the Cowboy season was over because it was basketball season, and I flew into the Dallas airport, and I had to drive all the way over for basketball at TCU, and it was a Friday. So, it took me a good while, and I did turn on the station. And it was just stuff that, like, oh, my goodness gracious.
A little closer to Howard Stern than what we're doing.
Totally, 100%. I was really shocked that that's what they were doing and what they were discussing, something that we would never discuss. And then there was some bootleg sound of a Van Halen record that they had, and they were talking about. I could live with that, but the other stuff that they were talking about,
nope.
That is a satellite radio discussion, man. I couldn't believe it. So it stuck with me. But I wouldn't even want to talk about that. I mean, basically, if our guys did, I would say, "Come on, guys, we don't need to talk about that."
Oh, pulling back the curtain. That's an epic line in a meeting a long time ago. Come on, guys. So to get back to Brett McMurphy and get this thing back on the tracks, I'm the one who did that. Brett McMurphy, here's the other thing he's leaning on. And I think that, and this is another thing you can't guarantee with injuries and all that, but as much as you hear people saying great things about the Utah defense, and you can look at previous years and back it up, and people say great things about the offensive line. And so as much as we talk about, can this OC do this or that, and can this quarterback do this or that, and those are important jobs, so it's totally fair game to talk about what they might be capable of. The thing everyone seems to agree on is that the Ute offensive line is going to be awesome. Now, to be awesome, it has to stay healthy. We get that. But sitting here in the preseason, man, it's getting pumped up. They got a first-round draft pick in that O-line. They might have a couple of draft picks in that line.
Oh, they most definitely have. They might have 2 first-round picks.
And dominant from one tackle to the other. So when the O-line is awesome, well, you can pretty much do anything behind it.
Well, yeah, I would be a little bit cautious on that because the guys that are expected to go high were on the team last year, and I don't know that they're better.
And you got to keep the QB healthy. But I mean, they are expected to dominate. Now we'll see if they do.
And the defensive line, I mean, they have a lot of irreplaceable parts. They always seem to do, but at the same time, they're missing 2 studs up front.
Took a big hit.
One at BYU and Tafuna being the other. So it's going to take a little bit of. I don't know that I can just come out and say, "Wow, they're going to be awesome."
But I get why he's leaning into this pick. I get how he got there. Now I think you could get a whole bunch of other places, and we can get into that in another segment. There's plenty of other teams you could have picked that would sound just as reasonable.
Yes, I think it would sound more reasonable, actually.
Okay. Because those are who you'd be picking and who you will pick and what we'll hear more of when you're at Big 12 Media Days.
Right, but I still say that this team, I expect it to be in contention in November.
So will this standings look like the standings last year? Like we know the 2 teams that got to, what was the name of that town? Irvington?
Irvington?
Yeah, they got to Irvington and played for the title. right? We saw ASU and Iowa State there. But there were 4 teams tied at 7-2, and there were 3 more teams 1 game back. And what was so stunning last year was that the teams that got picked at the top were way down at the bottom, and the teams that were at the bottom were way up at the top. But the fact is, if you picked any of those 7 teams, it wouldn't have been nearly as outrageous because there were literally 7 teams within 1 game of going to Irvington.
Well, I think some things have to happen in order for that to happen is that you have to have an absolutely horrendous team that everybody beats, literally everybody beats. So you're it's not a guarantee going into it, but afterward you got the win. And we had that with Oklahoma State and to an extent, Utah, right? So the teams that we thought would be tougher, circumstantials, and they weren't. So that gave teams wins. And I don't know necessarily if we're going to have 2 teams that you would expect to be better and go a combined, 2 and 18, right? Is that what it was?
2 and 16.
2 and 16.
Yeah.
So if we have that, I think there's a likely chance. And also the fact that it's such a large conference and you don't play so many teams, that really factors into it. We had this to an extent with the Pac-12. You played your teams in their division, so that was 5 games, and then they had the crossover games. So what, you were only missing 2 teams on the other side? Is that the way it played out?
Yep.
Yeah, so that's not that much. Here, you're missing a lot of teams, and so because of that, I think that leads to a more jumbled conference standings because, you didn't have to play this team, you didn't have to play that team.
It might have sorted itself out.
Yeah, and I think it tends to do that, and you have the logical standings of everybody played each other, and the good teams, most of the good teams beat the bad teams, and so you had that order and descending all the way to the bottom. Now, with so many teams missing each other, I think that lends itself to more teams being closer together. You look at the Cougs, right? They didn't play Iowa State and Colorado last year, right? And so they didn't have the opportunity to get losses to good teams. Utah did play both of those teams, and they lost to both of those teams. So you have it's such an, not the word isn't imbalance, but it's just, to me, in my mind, because of the almost like haphazard nature of a schedule now, that you are in the situation where you're going to have these teams that can be, standings are going to not be deeply separated from 2nd place to 5th place or whatever it might be.
Well, they can ride that defense, and they can ride that O-line. I mean, that's always been the team is built the way Kyle Whittingham would wish a team to be built, right?
They always are.
Now, can they execute it?
When did they not?
Well, I mean, they don't have an O-line like this every year. I guess to your point.
They had it last year. It's the same guys are back.
Right, but they weren't back last year. Did you know they were going to be this good?
I knew Spencer Fano was going to be this good.
Yeah, Spencer
Absolutely.
Fano.
I'm sure
agreed.
Yock knew Spencer Fano was going to be that good.
He was back, and he was changing.
News.
He'd already been on the field as a tackle, and he was changing sides, but nonetheless.
Hell, he's so good he could play 2 positions at once.
Tackle and guard.
Yeah. He'll hike the ball and then be the lead blocker on the sweep. I mean, he came in from literally day one.
He was supposed
if
to
you
be
come in from day one and you're a big-time player at Utah, you are an NFL player.
Yeah, that's pretty much established now. That's
right.
That's what's happening.
Now, the offense is going to be better, but I wouldn't necessarily point to the O-line because the O-line is what it is. It's what's going to make the offense better is not the O-line because the O-line is already there and already been doing its thing. It's going to be the transfer from Washington State. Obviously, it's going to be Dampier and those types of things. Those are my 2 guys at the top that I expect to have big seasons. What's the kid's name? Parker. And with that in mind, that's where I'm going. The O-line has already been established in my mind. It's not new. Now it just has more weapons behind it. If this thing works, certainly the offensive line is going to be a critical component, but it was always going to be a critical component. It's going to be Dampier with his electric ability to get out there and then trying to tackle that dude. Good luck. And then, obviously, the running attack, which they always seem to have anyway. So I totally get what McMurphy's saying. Absolutely. I buy it. And also, I think there's another aspect in that Utah, and I'll go to my grave saying this, at least now, maybe 5-10 years from now it'll change, that they are the most disrespected team in college football. Or overlooked, not disrespected. The most respected, overlooked team. They're not overlooked. They haven't been overlooked in years. And this is a classic example
of Brett McMurphy not overlooking them.
Right. But yet, they're out in Utah. It's like the Van Horn thing years ago. Oh, man, how come you have a little axe to grind that you weren't recruited by the Pac-10? And I was sitting right there the day before the draft because, nobody comes from the WAC and is the second player and it was understood he was going to go number 2 behind Duncan at that point, right? And so you just assume, there are two things they assumed about Van Horn. He wasn't recruited by the Pac-10 and he was a Latter-day Saint. And he was neither. Not that it mattered, but they just assumed a white guy from Utah, right? And he was recruited by the Pac-10. He just chose to go to Utah. And it's the same thing. Utah, they're just overlooked. No, they're not. They get enormous amount of respect, and this is just another latest example of it. And all the respect that they get has been earned. That's what's so cool about it. Everything that they've accomplished as a football program has been earned.
DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. While the Utes are picked, there are other teams that could be picked. We will get to that next. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone.
Accessing.
This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G.
Coach Ron McBride's hanging out with us.
This is Under the Radar. Lavani Damuni, Lander Barton, Logan Fano.
Oh, yeah. The Fano boys, both of them, the tackle is pretty amazing. You look at him, he looks different than everybody else.
Talk about Spencer.
Yeah. The two offensive tackles at Utah are very good. BYU tried to steal those two guys.
They did?
Oh, yeah.
I hadn't heard that.
You got to be kidding.
No, hey.
Coach.
Hey.
That seems like
I don't make these things up.
that seems like you're repeating rumors, Coach.
No way.
You make it seem like BYU maybe had some money to spend that they were throwing out there.
That is correct.
Catch Hans and Scotty weekdays from noon to 3 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The band of the day today is The Doors. Jim Morrison dying on this day in 1971. Brought to you by Live Nation. For all the live concerts and events in 2025, check out livenation.com.
I remember it, man. I couldn't speak for like 2 hours when I heard the news.
You would have been pretty young. Pretty young to be that hardcore into The Doors. Yeah, that's more like it right there.
I'm kidding.
I thought so.
I've since read a lot about it and all that stuff.
Was he in Paris?
Familiar with it. I got pictures from the gravesite from somebody texted me a name that everybody would know in this community. Texted me pictures when that person was there one summer a few years back. So I have that on my phone. And then I turned around 2 years ago and texted this person the gravesite of Greg Allman of the Allman Brothers. I said, I realize it's not the Doors, but I still think it's cool.
Yeah. So, your move. You guys can have the tennis match.
Difference
for the next
in income.
rock star.
One can go to Paris, and I went to Macon, Georgia. It's a little cheaper.
A little bit. Saved a few bucks.
Yeah.
Brett McMurphy has the Utes winning the Big 12, going to the playoff. I saw his playoff bracket. That was the only Big 12 team he had in the playoff.
That sucks.
No second team. He had the usual suspects in there. Ohio State, check. Oregon, check. Georgia, check. Notre Dame, check. Right on down the line. I think Penn State and Alabama have a pretty good shot this year, PK. It doesn't mean he's wrong. I can hate it, but it's like, well, it's probably not a terrible prediction. He's probably going to get a bunch of those right.
Yeah.
He did have Boise State in.
And then I'm wondering, in their own version of not the true blue blood, but is Boise just going to dominate that spot that's available to those teams?
With so many teams that have rotated through that spot as the postseason's gone through its various forms, and they don't have to compete with a lot of those teams because, now TCU's in the Big 12, Utah's in the Big 12. They, BYU never grabbed a spot, but there were projections about them sometimes, but they're in the Big 12. So a lot of these teams are across the line and into a power league. So there's arguably fewer to go after.
Because it seemed like Boise was slipping relative to where it was, but they've had a renaissance now.
Yeah.
But we'll see, I think they're in the toughest conference that they've been in or are going to be. Not right now, but next season.
Yeah. So you can look at the Utes and Brett McMurphy's prediction and say, okay, I see why he says that, but how many teams in the league can you say that for? If the next national college football writer, Andy Staples, whoever comes out and does a similar deal, which actually they probably all will here shortly, and if they say Texas Tech, you're not going to bat an eye. You're like, well, I get why they put Texas Tech up there. But how many teams in the league
could that's going to be my pick, yeah.
Yeah. How many teams in the league can you do that for before you look at one and go, whoa, that's a reach. I didn't see that coming. I wonder what they're thinking there.
Oh, well, you can. I think you got to put both schools here locally.
Even with
BYU right now,
even with an inexperienced quarterback at BYU. I was literally talking about this with a Cougar fan yesterday, who was, and everybody will do whatever they want with their own expectations. He was scaling his back. He's like, he said, I was thinking 10 wins. Now I'm thinking 8.
Okay, but the Devils had just the same thing last year, and they freaking won.
And it could line up. It could happen.
So I only have to go back as far as the very last game.
You have the Devils on this list?
I think they should be on the list, yeah.
Got too many starters back, not to.
Correct.
Even though they're missing a really good one, obviously.
And my gosh, I would hammer that in Levitt's ear 50 times a day, because he's got to be able to hear that. So many folks are doubting him and say he was a product of Scattabooyah. And obviously that kid was off the charts great. And you had the best description ever of what you see when you watch him play. Speaking of Scattabooyah, you said you just laugh.
I do.
And I thought, wow, that was a great description. We all know what that means. That's the ultimate entertainer right there, because that's what you want.
Yep.
And he certainly had it, and he's gone. So it's a big loss. To me, that loss you could argue is parallel to Retzlaff being gone. How's it going to be? But you got these other guys now, man, and we always hear next man up, blah 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 blah. So let's go and let's see what you got. So. You can go down the list probably, and maybe not as extreme as the quarterback and the running back for BYU and ASU. I get that, but other teams have got losses too. So I would also throw Iowa State.
Iowa State, I was going to say,
has to be. I think you have to throw Kansas State in there.
What about Kansas?
And I would have no problem putting Kansas in there. And I realized they didn't have a good season last year. Yeah. And then Baylor, don't you have to consider them?
So now that's 8 teams. That's half the league we've now named.
I know. I got it.
I think given the way Baylor ended the season, we should have brought their name up earlier.
Well, I wasn't bringing it up in any order.
In any order. Right. But let's just make clear, I don't think they're like the 8th best favorite in this league.
Okay, that's fine.
I wouldn't be shocked if after last year, I don't know if I could be shocked by any of the 16. At some point, you just throw up your hands like, okay, there's a transfer portal. It's a huge league. It's craziness. There isn't an Ohio State at the top of the league, so anything can happen. But I would say that I would be a little more – if Baylor – I think BYU winning it would be more surprising than Baylor winning it. I think Kansas winning would be more surprising than Baylor. Baylor really finished strong. You look at they got that quarterback situation ironed out. September was a mess. But they get to October, November, they were really good. And they were really so if they can keep it rolling.
That's their own fault, and they overlooked Robertson 2 years in a row.
Right. But then it's our fault if we overlook them now. And having said that, just because you did something last October and November, it doesn't mean you're going to repeat it now. It doesn't.
There's no guarantees
None.
on anything. So
right.
That's why I'm looking forward to the season, because there's a whole level of possibilities that are there, and then there's going to be a couple of possibilities that we aren't considering possible right now.
Nobody's mentioned TCU yet. Would that shock you?
Shock me? No.
Mildly surprise you?
No, would not shock me. I would say in the category of possibility, that would be shockers, but I think they at least need to deserve a look, is Arizona and Colorado.
So mildly shocking. Surprising. Not shocking, but it would be surprising.
Yeah, I mean, because if this Lewis kid is what they say he is, and especially as we get into November, if he's got enough playing time over there in the Boulder, look out. And Fafita's a dangerous man. And maybe it's a little bit of BYU basketball with the Cats being, man, so much was new last year that it just took a while. And with basketball, you play enough games that you can develop it during the season. Football, you don't play that many games, and then because you don't, and you started 1-4 or whatever it was, I'm just throwing stuff out there, you end up beaten. And now with the staff coming back for next year and all that, this year and all that, maybe they put it together. I wouldn't pick them by any stretch, but I think they'll be a dangerous team on any given week. And if you get them that particular week, they can beat you. I really believe that's possible, and I think we'll see that. There'll be a few surprises with the Cats. Like, wow. That was an impressive win. They may not have the accumulation, but I think they'll have some individual ones.
So if West Virginia does it, we'd be surprised because Rich Rod will have a good offense, but we did our spring football tour, and the defense might face a couple challenges. So if they pull it off, that would be shocking.
Well, the thing that I go with this, and I do this historically, when you have a coaching change, was it because the guy got a better job and left, or maybe retired, or was he fired?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's two different situations there that can determine. And I think more often than not, if a coach is replaced because they were dissatisfied, you have to allow the new coach some time.
Hence the difference between Deion's first year and Deion's second year.
Yeah, to me, that's just a general rule that I have, particularly, most especially, at this time of year.
So apply it to UCF as well, then. Scott Frost is there, and they lost 8 of their last 9 games and were a mess. They beat Arizona. But other than that, they were a mess.
Right. And, it doesn't always play out. Like for the other side of it, it didn't play out with the Cats last year. Jed Fish was promoted in a sense, and we expected more out of Arizona, and they were a big disappointment.
All right, DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. PK, it's the Utah Jazz. Anything is possible. Do you think this is possible? And if so, how will people react?
Oh my gosh, if it's possible, build a statue.
We'll get to this next. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone.